Okay. All right. Ever since I've done these lessons, with the exception of the Gospels, where I did Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, where we're all over the place, I always did either 1 or 2 chapters a week. This week I'm going to do something different. I'm not doing exactly 1 chapter because it ends right at the climax when Joe's about to reveal himself. So I'm going to do about part of this, all of chapter 44, the first half of 45, and then the next week we'll finish 45 and 46 and be on target to finish Genesis at the end of August. But this is the climax today. So where did we leave off last week? Things have turned for the better for the brothers. What I've emphasized in this lesson, that although Joseph had a miserable experience, in prison, his brothers, we could argue, might have even been worse. The mental, the torture, the guilt, living around years, and now Joseph has ascended to the palace. So their life was so terrible, and it finally led to them going down to Canaan. But they've had nothing but problems since they've gone down there. For some reason, this man who's the leader of the world has these crazy questions about their family. Why are they here? Accuses them of being spies, sends them back. Mysteriously, their money appears in their bag when they get back, so they're saying to themselves, what's going on here? What is God doing to us? So, they had to leave Simeon. They come back. Simeon is presented to them unharmed. Joseph sees they have brought, of course they don't know who he is, sees they brought Benjamin. He gathers them together in a feast, and we talked about coincidences in life and strange things that we never get an answer for. And I give you those 3 illustrations. They're sitting around a table in order of their birth, and they're going, what is going on here? So they've been fed, they've been given their food, they've told them about the money that was mysteriously in there. He said, no problem, don't worry about it. So far as they know, everything's taken care of. But little did they know, Joseph was setting them up for one more test. All right. Chapter 44, verses 1 to 5. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill them in sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his corn money. And he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. Remember, Benjamin was the key. He wouldn't do all this stuff unless they brought Benjamin, and now they had made the vow to their father, putting on their, Reuben offered his own sons. Judah offered his own life, guaranteeing that they would bring Benjamin back. And we'll talk about in a minute why was Benjamin so important. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their asses, and when they were gone out of the city and not yet far off, Joseph said unto his steward, up, follow after the men, and when thou dost overtake them, say to them, wherefore have ye rewarded evil for good? Is not this of which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth ye have done evil in so doing? So let's follow the brothers again, all 11 now, leaving Egypt, loaded down with food, all their money restored to them. They think, they're still thinking, I don't know what's going on. That crazy guy who's leading the world, why he was so obsessed with our family, why he treated us so horrible the first time, why he treated us so good the second time. So they basically think they're on the way to Canaan. They'll have enough food maybe this time to get them through this famine, and then just live out their lives and never be heard from again. But little did they know that the Lord had a plan, a major plan, and they were one of the key factors to this working. So they're sitting there and on their way, and then all of a sudden trouble comes again, and now we get to this Benjamin's cup. Verses 6 through 13. And he overtook them, and he spake unto them these words, and they said unto him, wherefore saith my Lord these words? God forbid that thy servant should do according to this thing. So they've told them, why have you taken the master's cup? Behold the money which we found in our sacks' mouths, we brought again unto thee out of the land of Canaan. How then should we steal out of thy Lord's house silver or gold? So they said, we came back home last time and the money was in our sack that we didn't even know about, and we brought that back. Why would we steal money again and do this? It doesn't make sense. With whomsoever of thy servant is be found, both let him die, and we also will be my Lord's bondsmen. People nowadays, they like to pronounce death on people. Remember we talked about a few weeks ago, Jacob said, the idols aren't here. If you find those idols, that person will die. And what happened? Rachel, not long after that, died. So they're willing to pronounce judgment. Now here, of course, the person with the idol didn't do it. So I guess in a sense, it kind of frees them from that. But they were so, I guess, wanted to defend their innocence, and they made like a gesture like that, let the person die. And he said, no, also let it be according unto your words. He with whom it is found shall be my servant, and ye shall be blameless. So they're setting it up. Whoever has the cup has got to stay back with Joseph. Then they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, and opened every man his sack. And he searched and began at the eldest, and left the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they rent their clothes, and laded every man his ass, and returned to the city. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground, bowing once again. So let's look about that. They thought they were in the clear. They were heading home, and I'm sure as the horses and whoever came after them, they're going, what now? And they mind are thinking, will we never stop being punished for what we've done? And so, they left joyful. They confront them, and I'm sure they're saying, we didn't do this. Why would you think we've done this? And it says they check the sacks in order. And as they go through the first 10, I imagine a feeling of relief is starting to come in. They're saying, I don't know why they did this for some reason, but here all their sacks are empty. And then they go to Benjamin, and they drop out the sack, and the cup comes out. And just imagine their reaction, the brothers. They probably just maybe collapse to the ground and say, no, I don't believe this. Maybe for a split second, they said, Benjamin, how can you have been so stupid? And I'm sure he says, brothers, I didn't do this. And then when everything seemed going their way, their world collapses again. And once again, they begin to think, Lord, why? What's going on here? Are you punishing us again for our brother Joseph? So now, unbeknownst to them, Joseph has set the whole thing. Zaphenath-Paneah is what they know him as. He's sitting back there waiting, and they come again. And once again, bow before him. Again, the dream comes true. So when they came the first time, they bow down before him. When they came the second time for grain, they bow down before him. And again, they bow down before him. We talked about in the past how many lonely nights in prison did these dreams keep Joseph motivated that, even though this is a horrible circumstance, the Lord has given me this promise, and I know eventually he's going to work his will. So now we see Joseph was one by the far of highest integrity, but we start to see in this chapter that Judah is really beginning to spiritually grow and takes a strong leadership role. We've talked about his 3 older brothers. Reuben had his moral failure with Jacob's concubine. Simeon and Levi led the attack on Shechem, killing all those people who had just been circumcised. So Judah is the next born, and he seems to take the leadership role. And we'll talk later this month when Jacob pronounces a blessing, how the scepter will not depart from Judah, and how all the kings and Jesus himself is from Judah's line. So we begin to see him take this leadership, and they go back to Judah, or back to Joseph. So let's set the stage. They go in there, they know they're toast. And so Judah has said, there's only one thing. I've got to just come clean and tell this man everything we have done, and maybe in his mercy, he'll let our brother go. All right. Verses 14. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said unto them, what deed is it ye have done? What ye not, that such a man as I can certainly divine? And Judah said, what shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak, or how shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants, and behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found. So they're saying, we're all guilty, take us here. So I guess they were saying, if we can't have Benjamin, put us all in jail. But here's final test, Joseph. And he said, God forbid that I should do so. But the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for you, get you up in peace and to your father. So he's saying, no, you're fine. You 10 can go home. You just need to leave Benjamin here. He's the one who stole the cup. Can you imagine their reaction? Got to go home and tell their father after pleading with him for months. It said they sat around there. The only reason Jacob considered this because they were about to die anyway, and he had nothing to lose. So the brothers knew, this was not an option. Now, what's Joseph doing? Remember, Benjamin is also the son of Rachel, and he's probably their father's favorite. So Joseph needs to see how has his brother's attitude changed toward them over the years. Has there really been a change in their life? And finally, after several tests, in verses 18 through 34 here, we get to the part where Joseph is finally satisfied. They've changed, and I can reveal myself. But let's first not get ahead of that first. It all comes ahead in this section here. Then Judah came near unto him and said, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not thine anger burn against thy servant, for thou art even as Pharaoh. We know Joseph was almost as powerful as Pharaoh himself. My Lord asked his servant, saying, Have ye a father or a brother? And we said unto my Lord, We have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. So keep in mind now, as Judah is telling him this, he thinks Joseph lived a few years in slavery and died and buried in a pit somewhere, never forgotten. No one knows what's happened to him, and he's actually telling it to Joseph himself. Little does he know. Also, imagine Joseph now, what he's thinking as he's telling this. Imagine he's fighting back to hold his emotions and saying, at last, after all these years, it's reconciliation is finally about to come. And verse 21, And thou saidst unto thy servants, Bring him down unto me, that I may set mine eyes upon him. And we said unto my Lord, The lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. So now, that really hits Joseph. He knows how close, how he was to his father, and he knows, of course, Benjamin is to his father. And now the brothers are saying, no, you can't do this. He's too important to his father. So again, Joseph is they've changed now. They're sympathetic to their father. Verse 23, And thou saidst unto thy servants, Except your youngest brother come down with you, you shall see my face no more. And it came to pass, when we came to thy servant my father, we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, Go again and buy us a little food. And we said, We cannot go down if our youngest brother be with us. Then we will go down, for we may not see the man's face, except our youngest brother be with us. So Judah's being brutally honest, telling him exactly what's happened. But when you're desperate, like he is, when you're facing, ultimate despair, you can only throw yourself at the court and tell the exact story. And thy servant my father said unto us, Ye know that my wife bare me 2 sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, Surely he is torn in pieces, and I saw him not since. And I'm sure as Joseph is hearing this, it's just killing him inside. And if you take this also from me, and mischief befall him, ye shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. So they're saying, if our father takes this other son, that will just about kill him. So not only will you be responsible for taking Benjamin captive, you'll be responsible for the death of our father back in Canaan. Now therefore, when I come to thy servant my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing us that his life is bound up in the lad's life, it shall come to pass, when he seeth that the lad is not with us, that he will die, and thy servant shall bring down thy gray hairs of thy servant of our father with sorrow to the grave. For thy servant became surety for the lad unto my father, saying, If I bring him not unto thee, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. So Judah's saying, basically, swore my life that I would bring Benjamin back. Now therefore, I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad a bondman to my Lord. Let the lad go up with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me, lest peradventure I see the evil that shall come on my father. So Judah's the spiritual leader. He's made the case before Joseph. Like I said, little did he know that he was actually talking to Joseph right there. He's very honest. He tells him the events that has occurred, brutally honest. And then Judah, how he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. We see the spiritual leadership Judah is displaying, and this will, part of the reward maybe is that the king will come through him. And then finally, Joseph, he's satisfied. He knows his brothers has changed. What would they have done given this scenario 20 years ago if they said, keep Benjamin or keep him with if Joseph was still living? They would have turned him in a heartbeat. They betrayed him. But now they're all willing to stay there themselves to make sure Benjamin is safe. So that means they don't harbor any more resentment, or if they do, because of the guilt and sorrow and shame of what they've done to Joseph, they find Joseph said, that's it. It's been, he was 17, so it's been about 22, 23 years now, and he realizes this is it. They finally learned their lesson, so it's time to do the revealing. All right, now remember, ever since they've been there, they've been speaking to an interpreter to Joseph. There's probably been several people in the room, and they're going to themselves, what is, probably guards and everything, and then all of a sudden, this begins to happen. Let's go slowly, chapter 45. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. So I told everyone to leave. And I remember the brothers now, we talked about last week, they're thinking, is this guy crazy? All the stuff he's caused us to do. And now he's bawling in front of us. What is going on? Also, remember this fact. They haven't spoken a word of whatever ancient Hebrew they were speaking, and Joseph is speaking some Egyptian dialect. Now all of a sudden, to give a quick illustration here, I don't know if you ever watched 24. I know Kay did, I know Eddie did, and Charles watched it. If you go to the first season, I think we talked about this before, we know Jack Bauer, when he has a hunch, he's usually right, and he has this hunch that this guy is a Russian spy. So he goes to this office building, kidnaps this guy, of course, like Jack does, no problem, and drives him off. He steals the car, ties him up in the back, and the guy's just sitting there going, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. Here's my wallet, I've got credit. He's just going over, and I'm watching it for the first time saying, Jack might have missed this one, and Jack's threatening all this torture, and this guy says, honestly, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden, whatever it is, Jack must have hit the right chord, and this guy starts speaking fluent Russian in front of him. It was almost as if you had a suspicion Vladimir Putin was walking around us, and if you took Vladimir Putin and he was talking to you like a Chrisfielder in Chrisfield accent, I don't know what you're talking about, you're out of your mind, and then all of a sudden start speaking that fluent Russian. So all they've heard is Joseph speak this thing through a translator. There's no one in the room now. There's 12 people in the room, the 12 sons of Jacob, and then here it comes. And he wept aloud. Verse 2, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard, and Joseph said unto his brother, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. Take a list. I was thinking of top 10 things you would like to witness in the Bible. Of course, Red Sea splitting, Mount Carmel, Elijah, Jesus raising Lazarus, Jesus raising himself. I would insert this as a non-supernatural event, but this is something I like to see. You want to see the reaction. Okay, we talked about last week great mysteries in life. We don't know. This is a mystery. All of a sudden, it all comes to pass. Why, when we go to Egypt, does the leader of the world care about how many brothers we have, about our father? Why, when we got back, was there money in our sack? Why, when we returned, he acted like, he could care less that we brought our money back and he was good to us? Why, when we left, that Benjamin's sack had his silver cup in it? And why is this man, leader of the world, bawling uncontrollably about it in front of us? And then he says, I am Joseph. And so think, and then does my father live? Shock at first whenever you hear stunning news. What did they do? I picture, a couple of them going, just go, that's it. It all makes sense now. There's a lot of mysteries in life we're not going to understand, but on these occasions, there are all those times when everything falls into place and makes sense. Maybe a couple of them, I picture them collapsing on their knees and bawling and saying, oh my gosh, now we see what we've done. Now we see it. You know, maybe on one of the more popular movies, Joseph removes his Egyptian covering and it makes it more clear to them. So I've all sort of several other things he may have done to reveal, but then it's all clear to them. And, you know, the story's not over yet, but this is a major moment, and this is basically the climax. So now we'll go over one more thing and just the aftermath of after this had happened. Verse 4, and Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Just imagine the memories going back in their mind, going back that day, him screaming maybe as they threw him in the pit. And as they dragged him off, you know, who they sold him to, even probably that day, beginning to feel regret, but saying, look, guys, we've done it now. We've got to go through with this and living with that guilt all those years. Now, but Joseph shows what kind of person he is. Now, therefore, be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that you sold me hither, for God did send me before you to preserve life. So there's, first of all, there's a big picture of saving the life of all, not only the Egyptians, all the people in the entire area with famine. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be eating nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you of posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God, and he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and Lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come now unto me, tarry not. Jacob's had a string, which we'll get to next week, had a string of bad news in the last 2 decades, and he's about to really get some change. Things are about to change for him, which we won't cover that this week. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that is my mouth that speaketh unto you. And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that you have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck. Remember, brother Benjamin is his full brother. He hasn't seen him or been able to, you know, fully converse with him since he's a little boy, and wept. And Benjamin wept upon his rock. Moreover, he kissed all his brethren and wept upon them. After that, his brethren talked with him. So I'm sure it wasn't a dry eye in his mouth in the house. Joseph, because of this coming to a head, Benjamin and him reunited, the brothers feeling first of guilt, and then, you know, love and compassion for their brother to forgive them after all that they did to him. So, you know, they were thinking all this time, they kept saying, this is God punishing us, and Joseph is hearing them, not knowing he can understand them. But it wasn't God punishing them, it was God working out his perfect plan. He sends a word, he wants to tell Jacob of his accomplishments. Joseph and Benjamin reunite. And also, not only does it save people from starvation, Joseph, it sets up God's plan, sends all the family to Egypt, where they'll multiply and become a great nation. So it's this is all part of the whole family of God. So this is a dramatic story, but this is for a dramatic encounter. So what a great story of restoration, how the Lord used tragedy and brought about this not only to reunite the family, to save the land, and prepare this large family to become a nation. So we've got another month of Genesis, but this is the climax. This is where it comes to a head. Next week we'll talk about the return to Jacob, and then to his reaction when he first hears the story. There's one more person who'll be surprised about this. And then how Genesis, the rest of the book, sets the stage up for the rest, really, of the Bible. All right, does anyone have any comments or questions? Anything, thoughts of this? Charles?
I had a sort of, not an experience like that, but wondering why this thing happened when it did, or I couldn't understand it, you know. Back in the 80s, we had my dad had a boat. She was the slowest boat on the river. I don't like going slow. I saw this boat up to, around Bosman. She was for sale. At that time, I think it was $25,000 or $30,000, which was a whole lot of money to buy, you know, putting a boat. Now it ain't nothing. And I wanted her. At the same time, it was the same time when Raymond Tom Sterling wanted me to go down to Florida with Dad, remember? I went down there for a couple of months or something like that. He went, I didn't want Dad to go by himself. He said, he said, if you'd go down there with your dad, we'll go up there and get that boat for you. He was gonna get her, you know, back me on it, cause I ain't had no money, you know. So I'd been communicating with the man, you know, prior for that. I said, I'll be up in, you know, next week or this certain day or something like that, fine. We got up there, he'd already sold her. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? This ain't the way that was supposed to work out. Now, I've already promised I was gonna go to Florida, so I did go ahead and go down there with him. And then when I come back, sometime around 86, 87, I started thinking about I was staying with Dad because of his age. He couldn't tongue anymore. I was doing all the tonguing. He was culling. And that's the only, you know, main reason I was staying with Dad as long as I did, because I knew once I quit, that was it. He wasn't gonna be able to go out by himself. He tried it, but he found out he couldn't do it. So it came up to where I was reading about postal exams and stuff like that. I said, you know what, I think I'll take the postal exam. So I went in the back bedroom there and I studied, and I figured there's a lot of memorization, which I would have no chance of getting it now. Because I don't have I used up all my memorization then, I think. But, and I stayed back there and I studied and I remembered, you know, I was doing all this. Well, I got a 95 on my postal exam. And I got a 5% military points, which added, you know, so I got 100 on the postal exam. Well, just to make sure, I took that postal exam in Easton, and just to make sure I took one in Salisbury too. And I come out the same way. I think I come up with like 95 or something like that. So every time I go by the post office down here, going down to the shanty, I'd pray. I said, Lord, if you want me to have this job, please let me get somebody call me and say, come on up. Well, it wasn't too long. I wanted to go to Salisbury, but Easton called me. I said, I'll go to either one that called me. And that's what I did for 8 months. I was working in Easton.
Okay.
And while I was up there, I come down and I heard Pocono had an opening. So I went down and talked to Jerry Boston down there. He said, yeah, he said, it's a hiring freeze right now. We can't get you, but as soon as the hiring freeze lifted, we'll have you in there. So, and that's what happened. So I never understood why the boat thing didn't go through, but if it had gone through, I'd have had that boat on, had to get rid of and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't know,
not
how
even
things
taking
are
the
gonna
test
work
if you
out.
got the boat. You might
Yeah,
have,
so you just hope things work out for the best, but sometimes you want them to work out the way you want them to work.
Right.
And that's not
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes we'll see it come forward, and sometimes we may never see. Even when we die, only heaven will reveal how the Lord, all the things He's worked out in our lives that we don't know.
Quick question. Why did Joseph ask his brothers if his father still lived?
It's a good one. I always think that, you know, that's the first thing he says
Did he not
besides
believe
I'm
them?
Joseph. I mean, they're telling him, so maybe they're saying they know the truth now. Maybe they, you know, they could just, are they just saying this just to get in the skies, brother? But now they know he really is Joseph, and he's saying, guys, it's me. Please tell me he's still alive. And then we'll also get to how long Jacob lived. That word you'll have to watch on YouTube.
Right.
but
Did the boat sink?
All right.
Did the boat sink?
Give me this, huh?
yeah.
Thank
All right, that it? All right.